coming and showing your support for the victims of bullying and violence. Tonight, for you, we have some amazing guest speakers who are here to share their stories, thoughts, and wisdom. But before we get to them, I would like to begin by giving you a brief background on the founding of this campaign. It began 4 years ago in 2012 after the founder Manwar Khan witnessed and tried to intervene in a deadly beating on the Edmonton LRT system. This event really brought into clear focus for him the role that bystanders play, and as a result, he founded the Do Not Be a Bystander awareness campaign aimed at empowering bystanders to stand up for the victims of bullying and violence. Over the past 4 years, Manwar has been traveling on weekends all around Alberta, organizing rallies and candlelight vigils like this one here tonight. So far, he has organized 15 rallies in Alberta in the cities of Edmonton, Lethbridge, Airdrie, and Calgary. He already has planning for 3 vigils after this one. Next month, he will be holding one in Calgary and is also planning 2 more to take place in High River and Red Deer in the new year. The purpose of these vigils and the reason we are gathered here tonight is to give a voice to those who have witnessed or who have been affected by bullying and violence. We are gathered here to remember that we cannot be a bystander, that we need to be the change that we want to see in our community, and that we can do this by empowering ourselves to take an action, and in doing so, empower those around us. So with this being said, first I'd like to call upon Kelty. She is our performer this evening. She is a singer, a songwriter with a unique voice that defies her age of 16 years old. On stage, Kelty delivers amazing performances that showcase her sound and style. Her genre can best be described as indie folk, with crossovers into roots and rock. Her rich vocals and exceptional songwriting have combined to result in a variety of original songs, including her nomination for Canadian Folk Music Award for her original Someone Tell Her. This song has also earned her the distinction of our regional finalist for CBC Music's Search competition and the Canadian Songwriters Song Competition semi-finalist. Kelty also recently won the prestigious Calgary Song and Anchor Songwriting Competition. So here is Kelty.
I'm Kelty, and the song I'm going to be singing today is called Someone Tell Her. And I chose to sing it today because I wrote about a time in my life when I kind of felt worthless, and I think it's important that, like we talk about bystanders, it's very, very important when we see a person that can't love themselves to love them for them. And I just wanted to get that message out, and I think that just talks about that. And yeah, just this track was not to say anything and to say it. So it's called Someone Tell Her. Don't smile, don't tell you, nothing is stopping all day. You can't hide from the sun all day. You wasted life living that way. There's more to beauty than the face. Someone tell her. Someone tell her, nothing is stopping all day. You can't hide from the sun all day. You wasted life living that way. There's more to beauty than the face. Someone tell her. Someone tell her. Someone tell her. Someone tell her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, County. That was awesome. So now I'd like to call upon our first guest speaker, David Egan, Minister of Education, Government of Alberta.
Well, thank you so much. And that was a beautiful, beautiful song, heartfelt, and certainly it's heartfelt as well to see all of you here this evening in the cause of fighting back against bullying, fighting back against discrimination and racism, standing together as Albertans, building the sort of society that we all wish and dream for ourselves and our children. On behalf of the Government of Alberta, I just want to, first of all, acknowledge Manwar Khan for organizing this event. He's been doing amazing work across the province. He's tireless, and I think he deserves a big round of applause. Today, we are coming together for showing our support to prevent bullying and to promote healthy relationships in our communities. Our government is committed to making life better by promoting inclusion, mutual respect, and it's clear that the vast majority of Albertans share our commitments. Bullying in any form, anywhere, is unacceptable, and everyone has a role to play in promoting a healthy and respectful relationships. When someone experiences bullying or discrimination, it can affect their self-esteem, their sense of belonging, and their very success in life. Bullying behaviors creates unwelcoming and uncaring surroundings for everyone, and is felt throughout the entire community. And I dare say with the perpetrator as well as the victim as well. You know that bullying is a form of insecurity, it's a form of incompleteness, it's a form of character, and it's part of what we need to work for, not just to protect ourselves from bullies, but to work through that bullying process and to have the inherent good that is in all people come out. It's important, and so events like this are important too. Our government is committed to promoting welcoming, caring, and respectful environments for all Albertans, to ensure our schools, workplaces, and communities respect diversity and promote a sense of belonging. At Alberta Education, we are working to promote youth parents, guardians, teachers, and school authorities to ensure that all students get the best education possible, and also to have the resources for students to ensure that we have a safe and caring environment for all students and for all people in our education system. School authorities have responsibilities to share and to make sure that students are safe and welcome, and we do that by building a policy that promotes healthy relationships, safe and caring environments for all students. Our government knows that our strength lies in our diversity as a province. We're one of the most diverse populations in the world, and it is one of the most, I think, things that we should be most proud of. But of course, you're only as good as the next thing that you do. And unless we make sure that we retain not just the cohesiveness of our society, but to actually promote and foster acceptance and inclusivity in everything that we do, then we inevitably will lose that gain that we have, that diversity that we have, the strength that comes from that. To further to this end, I've been asked by Premier Rachel Notley to reach out across to communities across Alberta to gather their input on diversity and inclusion in Alberta. We're looking for ways in which we can fight racism, foster acceptance, and promote an inclusive society for all here in the province of Alberta. We're having conversations across the province, and indeed we've had more than, well, many dozens of meetings and more than 200 requests for people to participate. I can tell that there's a strong enthusiasm here in the province of Alberta because at the heart of who we are as a society, we know that the more that we can reach out and in a caring and safe sort of way to each other, then the stronger we are, not just as individuals, but we're stronger together in all ways. So we can start here and now by making sure that we are being more thoughtful, looking after each other, following to prevent discrimination, and I always say by following the golden rule, which is of course you do unto others as you would expect to be treated yourself as an individual. Use that golden rule, and it goes a long ways, both in school and in family and in community. Our government is working hard always to ensure that we have a more equal and socially just society here in this province. It's never easy to do, but it's the fight very most worth fighting here and using all of the power that we have invested in us as the government of Alberta. On behalf of Premier Rachel Notley, again, I salute all of you who are fighting for a more equal and just society, to fight against bullying, and to promote the sort of society that we want to raise our families in. On behalf of Premier Rachel Notley and the Government of Alberta, and thank you very much for this time, and I look forward to hearing the speakers and music here this evening. Thank you very much.
Our second speaker, Vigil. Vigil is an Edmonton-based activist. She is a certified life coach at Inspired Living. Vigil.
Thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and thank you Manoir for organizing the 5th annual Do Not Be a Bystander event. This event is very important to me as 9 years ago, my own son chose to end his life due to bullying and depression. And I did bring this poster of him with me today. Learning how to master human interactions is a lifelong process, and one that deserves to be taught to our kids over a period of time. Social and emotional skills are a way to assist students to cope with bullying and to thrive in all their interactions. We need to educate bystanders on what they can do. And some of the things we can do is we can believe that bullying, so that stopping bullying starts with us. That it's our job to intervene, and that it's not someone else's responsibility. We need to feel a connection with the bullied person. Whether or not you are friends, the bystander must feel empathy for the victim and believe that the victim does not deserve to be mistreated and be disrespected. We need to understand that conflict is a part of life. We need to know how to use assertive communication to stop bullying whenever we see bullying. And we need to feel confident that our intervention will have a positive impact on the bullied child or person. When we don't say or do something, we are actually becoming part of the problem. If you are present during an episode of bullying, you have the power to do something to stop it. So what can bystanders say when they see a bullying episode? You can say, don't do that, that's mean, knock it off, not cool, not funny, you're taking it too far, stop, or stop that behavior. Intervening to bring an end to bullying does not have to be complex or time-consuming. The most powerful interventions are often the simplest ones. The brief statements, the use of kindness, and the everyday courage to stop bullying whenever you see it. Because bullying is marked by repeated acts of aggression, it should come as no surprise that this behavior is predictive of troubling mental health and behavioral outcomes, including substance abuse, depression, and anxiety. Little things become big things when left unchecked. Small acts of cruelty can wreak havoc on homes, schools, and communities. Likewise, small acts of kindness and compassion can make a world of difference. We all have the power to stop bullying. May we continue to shine our lights and to raise awareness on these issues, and to remember those who are suffering in silence and those no longer with us. Thank you.
Now I would like to call upon Darren Lurie, is a Guinness World Record holder, and, every please believe it or not, he has been published in 4 books for his numerous records. Daryl is also an advocate for awareness on the issue of bullying and mental illness. Daryl.
Why should everyone care about bullying? Because bullying includes everything from school bullying to domestic abuse to sexual assault to racism to sexism to homophobia to workplace bullying to elder abuse to child abuse to terrorism. Bullying is the biggest epidemic in the world, period. This is more than just a speech to me. When I shared this speech with my wife and she read it out loud, I could not even be in the same room as her because the words of this speech still pierce my deepest pains. My name is Daryl Leary. I was severely bullied for 4 years in school from 1989 to 1992. I have waited 25 years hoping and praying for nothing more than a stage to stand upon and share my story with an audience, big or small, willing to listen. During those 25 years, I have shared my story on blogs and YouTube videos. I reached out to every school principal, school trustee in this city, and Minister of Education. I have even reached out to the local media and television shows like Ellen and Dr. Phil. Finally, for the first time, I have been given the opportunity to speak to a live audience. It is not that I have suffered more than all those who have been bullied. It is that I know a truth I am willing to share with anyone willing to listen. And that truth is, every school has a bullying problem. And if you don't think your school has a bullying problem, you are mistaken. Every school has a bullying problem. And that being bullied, as severely as I have been, can cripple a person long into their adult life, long after the bullying has stopped. affecting everything from their education to every relationship they will have. I don't know how I had the resilience to face the level of hate I faced every day for 4 years. It is a soul-breaking experience that no one should ever go through. I was the ideal kid every parent dreams of having. I was polite, law-abiding kid who respected authority. All my report cards were filled with the comment, quiet, a pleasure to have in class. And for my decency, I was spit on, sucker punched, and threatened on a daily basis. I had objects, including rocks, thrown at me, called the worst names you can imagine, and told multiple times that I should commit suicide. Those who knew me the least spread the most vicious gossip about me. Students told other students not to befriend me. I was not welcome to eat lunch alongside my peers, so I ate my lunches alone, usually in a park away from the school. The boys bullied me, the girls would not even acknowledge me. I eventually dropped out of high school because I could no longer cope with the stress of being bullied. Constantly tormented by my own unresolved issues of anger, rejection, and fear, I tried to end this life of mine 5 times. I eventually became a patient of Alberta Mental Health, diagnosed with chronic depression, panic attacks, and anxiety. And now I live on disability. This is only part of what bullying has cost me. To the public school system, I say, the cost of bullying to the individual and to society is too high to ignore. If you fail to act, you are part of the problem. And by act, I mean initiate a regular dialogue with students and staff, network with other schools, foster an anti-bullying environment, and practice bystander intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. Our next speaker is Y2Mate. Activist Y2Mate has 15+ years of experience working in the field of disability at the post-secondary school level, with a focus on advancing equity and accessibility for students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, as always, for this honor and absolute privilege to be able to speak today. Thank you to all of our supporters, the speakers and presenters who helped here for the forward team. In preparation for speaking this evening, I reflected on events of this past year. I thought about how many times I've watched or observed bad behavior, really bad behavior, in politics, in the news, in social media, on television, in schools, in the workplace, on the streets, and so on. Bad behavior that lacks respect, decency, and kindness. Bad behavior that violates basic human rights. For me, it reinforces the importance in my role, in our role, in protecting and standing up for these rights, standing up for individuals who are have their rights violated or who are victims. These rights are freedom from violence, protection from discrimination, right to education, and right to develop one's full potential. These are the reasons we are here today. These are the reasons we are speaking out and standing up. In closing, I'd like to share with you a passage from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He says, our humanity is caught up in that of all others. We are human because we belong. We are made for community, for togetherness, for family, to exist in a delicate network of interdependence. We are sisters and brothers of one another, and whether we like it or not, each one of us is a precious individual. I encourage you to stand up, to speak out, most importantly, be kind.
Thank you, Mindy. Our next speaker, Stephen Mandel, who has served as the Mayor of Edmonton, Alberta from 2004 to 2013. He was elected to 3 terms in 2004, 2007, and 2010.
Thank you. As we're standing on the legislative steps, we also need to recognize we are in traditional Treaty 6 territory, and we truly are honored to be here. The speakers have commented today with tears to your eyes what people go through and the horrific actions of bullying, attack individuals. It's almost impossible to believe that people can be so mean, so vicious. They can force someone to either commit suicide, to become inadequate in so many different ways. We need to do more about it. So many of these meetings happen so often. We get together as community members to talk about bullying, the problems it creates. I'm no scientist, I'm no educator, but there's got to be a better way. We have to more realize that there's a two-sided coin. It's not just those who are getting bullied, but there's a reason why people do the bullying. Their inadequacies, the problems they're having at home, the other issues that they're facing. We have to stop only looking at those who are bullied, but look at why those are bullied. And maybe we can begin to find solutions to problems. Daryl's story is really heartwarming. And I mean, it's horrific to hear someone's life has been almost destroyed. But he's come back and much stronger. He's really quite an eloquent speaker. So today, if we can think of anything else, it's really not just about those who are being bullied, because that's vitally important, but how do we look at ways to deal with those that are doing the bullying. In today's world, with the media we have, and Facebook, and all those Twitters and everything else, the ability for people to be ambitious is quite scary. So let's all get together and try to fix the problem on both sides, just not on one. I want to thank you so much for putting this together. Appreciate it. Your passion is much appreciated. Government of Alberta, wherever you want to be, where'd you go? You're left. But anyway, thank you very much for being here. And all of you, thanks so much for participating.
Our next speaker is Taras Boucher, former institutional elder for Edmonton Women's Center. Her professional profile includes justice, corrections, community development, and more recently she is campaigning for the civic election. As a social worker, she has provided bicultural competency training for the Solicitor General of Alberta, Victims of Crime Support Services, City of Edmonton.
I'd like to say thank you to Manoir for the invitation to come and speak. Of course, and thank you for Stevens for reminding us that we are on Treaty 6 territory. That's very important to me as an Indigenous woman to this land. When we speak of bullying behaviors, I have to say I've had a lifetime of experience in bullying behaviors throughout this land. And the first thing I'd like to do with you all, because we are here to think about the bystander who stands and does nothing. So I want you to use your voice right now. I say stop, you say bullying. Stop.
Bullying.
Stop.
Bullying.
Get louder, stop.
Bullying.
Put your hands up like this. Stop.
Bullying.
Do it again, stop.
Bullying.
Now you say stop, I'll say bullying.
Stop.
Bullying.
Stop.
Bullying.
Stop.
Bullying.
Stop.
Now I'm not going to stop. Thank you. It's really important that you do it as a group. Having worked at the Edmonton Remand Center 5 years, I'm very well aware of bullying behaviors, not only on a personal level, but a professional level. As a social worker in the city for 30 years, I'm very aware that the increase of violence in this city has been astronomical. When we moved here as a family, I was 7 years old. My mother was really treated very well. She could barely speak a word of English. And people understood she was indigenous to this land. She was actually treated with respect. But we didn't move to the inner city. We didn't move to the areas where there might be danger. We actually were raised in Jasper Place. And there were very many indigenous people in that area at that time. But the people that were our neighbors, were our teachers, were our people who were working with us in schools. They were our community members. And the community back then knew how to work together. Social media wasn't as big as it is now. There was more relationships, where the young people would get together and be able to talk to each other human to level. So there's some desensitizing taking place with social media when it comes to online bullying. It's so easy for someone to say words online and not realize the impact that ripples out to the individual psychologically, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So we have to really be diligent with our children when they're online and know who their friends are and be aware of what they're talking about. Check on them and see what's going on in their conversations. I know that I've screened my own grandchildren. They get upset with me and it's like, Coco, really? You know, Coco is Creed for grandmother. You know, why are you checking up on us? Don't you trust us? They'll throw all the words at me and I'll go, it's not you. It's others I don't trust. Because people make fake profiles, people do things, they're trying to lure young people into different ways, and then people bully. And you haven't got, you no longer have one person ganging up on someone, you might have up to 1,000 people online bullying, doing damage to that poor young person who's thinking that they've done something wrong and taken it onto themselves. I do believe schools should develop policies, perhaps even curriculum, around bullying behavior so that people understand this is unacceptable in this city, in this province, in this country. As an Indigenous woman, I think it's time that people understand we, the Indigenous people of this land, have been putting up with bullying behaviors from different levels of government for centuries and for years, since the 150-year celebration to us is another bullying tactic. We look at they're totally disregarding us as a people and not understanding that, you know what, we are still dealing with the effects of genocide. And that's the harsh reality that we have to live at. That's the ultimate of bullying behaviors, is genocide. And 5 years at the Evans Remand has taught me when the children are not encouraged to be peaceful and the parents aren't keeping an eye on their kids, it could be your kids who are the bullies. It doesn't look like a monster in the closet. If you're not paying attention to what your children are doing in school, and somebody comes along and says, your child has bullied my child, and instead of finding out the whole story, both sides of the story, and listening, and taking into account, we do circles in our culture to get to the bottom of things. And we'll take hours discussing things, trying to find out really what happened, and how can we change it, and how can we prepare the relationships. Because it comes back to repairing relationships. Bullying can't stop. And I was thinking about the bullies, and I wrote a couple of notes. First thing they do is they get out your boundaries. Within 5 minutes, anybody who has that power and control issue over another human being will test the boundaries of that human being to see whether or not they can push the boundaries so they can bully that individual. We need to teach your children about safe boundaries. We also need to teach that bullies look for vulnerability. They will look at your body language, and if you look weak and vulnerable in any way, they will do whatever they can to impose themselves upon you. And especially the teenagers, we're at that age where they're questioning themselves and they're looking at their identities. You know, they'll gang up on them as a team and say they're unacceptable, and they'll work towards bullying and undermining any kind of confidence that that child has. My heart goes up to this young man who spoke earlier. No one should go through that anywhere. No one. We should all be safe. When you think about nonverbal cues, I've taught my grandchildren how to stand, how to walk, how to present themselves in ways, because I know, having worked with gang members within institutions, what they look for in vulnerability, and they can read the body language of someone they know they can push around within 5 minutes. And it's important that we teach our children to be confident and be given the skills necessary to deal with bullying behaviors. They cannot understand what bullying behaviors unless you name it. So again, I'm going to say stop. You're going to say bullying. Stop.
Bullying.
Louder. Stop.
Bullying.
Now put your right hand up. Stop.
Bullying.
Now that looks aggressive. I'm just kidding. You know, it's a serious thing that's going on. When I'm online, I'm on Facebook, and I watch, I'll do interventions even on Facebook. If I see someone attacking somebody, I'm not a bystander. I never have been, I never will be. I'm the one who'll stand up and say, hey, enough, what are you doing? I'm the one who'll throw something to distract the bully. I'm the one who'll do something that will stop the behaviors that I see escalating, but then I'm trained in that as well. I'm the 19th child, so I have a lot of older siblings, so I don't learn how to deal with some of this behavior that goes on when people want to intimidate or control someone who's vulnerable or seemingly weaker than they are. Children need to be feel safe. In elementary, there needs to be signs up everywhere in schools, policies developed where it's unacceptable, zero tolerance towards bullying behavior and consequences towards that. I've seen too many people in jail over the years whose behaviors has escalated over years, and everybody's making excuses for that behavior. The excuses need to stop, and accountability has to happen. You know what? When you're victimizing somebody, we know you're doing wrong. But the thing that immobilizes us at those times is fear. And then shock. We can't believe this is going on, that somebody is bullying somebody in front of us. So we have to practice what we would do in the cases of observing bullying behaviors. And I suggest that each of you start to learn, what would I do in that situation? Ask yourself that question. Because we as a society are starting to fail. It's society that's failing, not just one individual. And I think it's important that we start working together, not just as Indigenous, non-Indigenous, but as society as a whole, and saying this is unacceptable behavior and keeping this world a safer, better place for our children. Do you agree?
Yes.
Say yes if you do.
Yes.
Louder.
Yes.
What can you do? You can say at least, the very least, when you see bullying happen, you can say, stop bullying. Name it. Can I hear you?
Stop bullying.
What?
Stop bullying.
Louder.
Stop bullying.
The more you practice with your children, and you understand, teach your children, your teens, your youth, your women, your elders, your seniors, your workplace people, what is bullying, what needs to happen to stop that bullying, and making it very clear to people, I will not be a bystander, I will not stand still, and I will not be quiet. Because in silence we condone any behaviors. If we're silent, then we might as well be beside the bully, giving out the abuse. And I know you cannot control what others do, but we do have control over our reaction. So stand up against bullying and be strong about it. Don't be timid. Bullies pick on vulnerability. They seek it. It's like food to their soul. It feeds them. They feed on fear. They're actually quite troubled people themselves, and they need a lot of help. But they need to be stopped when they're doing bullying behaviors. So I thank you all very much for listening to me, and we're going to stop bullying. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Our next speaker is Don Johnston, also known as Dan, is a Canadian anti-poverty activist, philanthropist, community organizer, and social activist. Dan.
Sure. I'll be quick about this, guys. Thank you all for coming out today. This is very exciting for me. I actually had a very, very busy weekend planned. And then Mark said I'm doing my event, and I said I have to be there because bullying has affected me personally, and it's something that I love what he's doing for this city, and it's so important that he raise this sort of awareness is such a cause that affects, I think, every one of us has been bullied at some stage of our life. I mean, this is not a small apple thing, it's not a small time thing. This happens to literally everybody. So a bit about me. I grew up incredibly poor. I grew up native in a predominantly white school, and I had the world's most crooked teeth. So I was literally bullied every single day. Physically, emotionally, mentally, all sorts of things. So basically, kids would beat me up in the washrooms, after school, they'd call me racist names, stuff like that. And, you know, it wasn't so much the physical aspect of it because bruises heal, but it was the verbal things that stuck with me. Even to this day, a few of the things were so vulgar that it never quite left my mind. And I won't say the words today because honestly I really don't want to give those bullies any credit, but everyone likes to kind of frown upon mental illness and how things stay with you, how words stay with you, and how memories pop up more and more and more. So thankfully I was able to get the counseling I needed, get out of that situation and say, you know what, I'm a person. It was to the point where I was ashamed to admit, well into my early 20s, that I was still Native. And now I'm proud to say that I'm First Nations. I'm one of the original people of Canada, and it feels good to say. Well, thank you very much. And so like I said, I mean, we all know someone's been bullied. We've probably all been bullied ourselves. And I look around here, and I see some great people on this stage, so I don't want to waste too much of your time. But we all have the power to stop things. What I wouldn't do to have someone in my elementary, junior high, high school stand up for me to say stop, or say leave that kid alone. I would kill for that this day. Well, not literally, because I'm not a bully. You guys know what I mean. So literally, we all have the power. And I know we live in the age of social media now. Everything's behind the screen, and that's even worse. Because at least when I was being bullied, it was face to face. And some kids, with a shred of humanity, would say, this doesn't feel right. They would see my tears, they'd see my face, and they would change and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this again. But over the screen, you say, you go, oh man, that kind of feels good. But you don't see what's on the other end. So social media, it's a big thing, and I just say, and many other people here, it's good to monitor that and just stay up to date and just kind of watch your kids, watch everybody else. And you know, it never hurts to say, just stop. Alright guys, well, thank you for having me today. Ben, Mark, thank you for doing this. And thank you guys for coming out today. This is fantastic. Thank you.
Now I'd like to call upon our youngest guest, Malika Sharaf. She is a grade 7 student at Arundel Junior High School. She has special interest in music, ballet, speech, debate, and basketball. She is a happy volunteer who takes every opportunity to volunteer at school. In doing all this, she doesn't forget to study. She is an honors with distinction student throughout her elementary and middle school. Malika Sharaf.
Good evening. My name is Malika Sharaf, and I am a grade 7 student from the Allendale School. I am honored to come here and stand in front of you to read a poem I've written. This is a powerful campaign about not being a bystander. This campaign should be heard and the message should be well known. I wrote this poem because I have friends who have been bullied and they thought that they would always be alone. But I want to tell them that they aren't. No one is alone when it comes to bullying. Trust me. This is the poem I've written. You're not alone. You look away and say you're fine. Yet I can see in your eyes you're lying. And say that nothing happened, but it's never a bad thing crying. You feel hurt on the inside, yet still remain your poker face. You're not alone because I am your true friend. So please don't show me your phony grace. The world is filled with so much hatred, and some people don't know what is right. Things happen for a reason, so show more courage and start to fight. The thing with bullies is that they make you outnumbered, hopeless, powerless, and vulnerable when it comes to feel. God knows why this evil is happening, yet just remember you're not alone because we're here. The world has done wrong. Sooner or later, more will go down an evil path. It will pass on and on by the next person showing their wrath. Yet there is a greater strength within that has to be strong to release. Because when you're not alone, it is easier to spread more peace. Learn not to bully others. There is no such good reason to. Humans have feelings as well, and the only person to to change yourself is you. Thank you.
Former federal candidate, consultant, and community activist, Jacqueline.
I didn't have to look very far for inspiration in which to build my comments on bullying from. In fact, I only had to look at my own Facebook account from just a few days ago, wherein I was chastised by someone who repeatedly has always seemed to know more about a particular situation than I have, or who offers unsolicited advice on what others should do or have done, which consequently is always contrary to what others actually did. I've often wondered how bullies choose their targets and what we can do to stand up to them, as oftentimes circumstances make that quite difficult. Bullying comes in many forms today, in the real world and online. And even more so, the lines between just a bit of fun or just joking can be blurred. In my case, cyberbully attacks have been personal, unprofessional, one-sided, targeted, and disrespectful. Standing up for oneself takes enormous strength, and as a society, when no one tolerates bullying, we can find enormous strength to stand up against this behavior. I found my spark to promote pro-social behavior and mobilize action in group environments by standing up against the bullying. I took a breath, did some research, compiled a response, and then sat on it for a day or two before reacting, just to ensure my online response did not continue to foster or fuel the adversarial, confrontational, or argumentative opinions of the bully. Although I appreciate that the freedom of speech process allows individuals to express their opinions, I don't excuse or tolerate their behavior when tactics solicit hateful, shaming, bullying, power and control tactics, or diminishes productivity or effectiveness of any personal or professional relationship. Rather, what I do applaud are champions against bullying, those that help educate and empower others so that we all have the opportunity to flourish in life and live in a caring, supportive, and encouraging society. And I applaud all of you who have chosen not to be a bystander. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain. Our next speaker is Rob Burnshaw, community organizer and activist, writer for community newspapers, the Red Queen Press and Patriot Park, passionate advocate to make Alberta bully-free.
Thank you to my friend NMaSo5lVaZI and all the people that have taken the time to organize this annual Candlelight Vigil on the steps and grounds of the Alberta legislature in memory of the victims of bullying. And also all the people that have come up to speak on Do Not Be a Bystander. They're great talks, they're great experiences, all very touching. And it comes to my heart as well, that I've been bullied in the past as well. I appreciate the honor of being able to say a few words tonight to help in the cause of eventually obtaining a bully-free society. This will be obtained by standing up and being an active participant in helping prevent and stop bullying in its tracks. Inclusion is better, it makes us stronger. Respect is the key in any interaction between human beings and the environment around them. Speaking from actual experience of being bullied throughout school, and even as recently as 10 years ago in the workforce, I have zero tolerance for bullying of any kind, no matter who is doing the bullying. Bullies recognize no boundaries, whether of country or the human condition. Respecting human rights of individuals is the key to a vibrant, healthy community and society where we live, work, and play. Remember this, we all breathe the same air and are all the same color under the skin. We all have hopes, dreams, and desires. Achieving a bully-free Edmonton, a bully-free Alberta, a bully-free Canada, and even a bully-free world, where all human beings respect all around them, is a goal that is achievable, one step at a time, one voice at a time. I fully believe in an attainable goal of a bully-free society, where all can walk with heads held high, respecting all around them with understanding, compassion, and love. All voices need to be heard, and understanding is the key to a bully-free society. The road towards a better community starts now, one step at a time. Stand up and let your voices be heard loud and clear. Say it with me. Everyone, do not be a bystander anymore. Louder. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and don't wait to participate on the road to more understanding, love, and compassion towards a bully-free society, where everyone may live, work, and play. From this moment on, the call to action is, do not be a bystander anymore. Let me hear you one more time. Do not be a bystander anymore. Thank you very much, Manwar, and thank you everyone else.
Thank you, Rob. I forgot to mention one thing about Rob, that he's also a candidate for City Councillor for Ward 8. Our next speaker is Mahinda Ganga, City Edmonton Ward 12 Councillor.
Good evening. Let me acknowledge, first of all, we're on 26 territory. I was supposed to be actually a tag along with my fellow councillors talking team, that is his ward, but somehow my name came first on the list. But anyway, thank you, Scott. On behalf of City Council, I am pleased to be participating in tonight's Candlelight Vigil. Our citizens help make Edmonton an inclusive, passionate, and safe city to live. We're home to people from all over the world, of all ages, ethnicities, religions, abilities, and sexual orientations, and we welcome them all with open arms. We don't tolerate bullying and violence. We stand up for what is right and help each other out as best we can. This vigil is a shining example of how Edmontonians can come together at grassroots level and speak up for those who can. Violence and other forms of bullying and abuse are toxic social realities that divide our community and threaten a peaceful existence and can have lasting effects on all of us, especially the victims. And everyone here tonight knows this all too well as we remember John Howler, who lost his life despite the good intentions of Mr. John. So we take the time to remember all those whose lives have been affected by bullying and violence. We stand together and renew our commitment to prevent further tragedy. I thank Manwar Khan and everyone involved in organizing this vigil. Your efforts to prevent bullying and violence help to empower Edmontonians to continue standing up for one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahinder. Our next speaker is Scott McCain, City of Edmonton Ward 6 Councillor.
Thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 land. I want to acknowledge that you people have been graciously standing through all of this, and I really appreciate it. I think that there's a real commitment to the cause. I want to acknowledge Manwar and the work he's done. I want to acknowledge these leaders who spoke tonight. It was especially great to hear from Mayor Stephen Mandel again. I can tell you I covered him as a journalist for the Edmonton Journal, and foundational to his career in politics was a commitment to uplifting marginalized people. And this is very personal for me. I was bullied in junior high quite viciously, and then that had an impact on my life for years. And so when people come to my office, as they have recently, to talk about racism and Islamophobia and sexual harassment in the ward, I take that very seriously. And I think our council is committed to programs and communicated ways and means to relieve that. But as all these speakers have said tonight, it takes all of us. Government won't solve this. It will be a commitment of all of us in this community. But I think where government can make a big difference is for politicians to walk the talk and stop the bullying. But they demonstrate too often in question period and in TV interviews, criticize the other party's policies, critique them, suggest that you have a better way. But I recently saw a diagram put together by a group of kids in Edmonton. It was about racism, and the more something was mentioned, the larger the word got. And you know what the biggest word was? Trump. That's the impact that we're getting from south of the border. We're seeing ugly, divisive politics from the U.S. Ours is much kinder and gentler, and we must keep it that way. So politicians, we have a leadership race coming up. We have a civic election coming up. I'll make a commitment to you tonight that I will try to be the nicest Scott McCain that I could be during this election. Thank you again, all of you, for coming out tonight and standing for so long. I really appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you, Scott. Next is Nathan Ivey, Edmonton Public School Board Trustee for Ward H.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nishi. I'll try to keep this very brief. First, I'd like to thank Anwar and his team for this opportunity for all of us to stand together against all forms of discrimination and bullying. But I'm often reminded that standing against bullying must involve more than just ensuring the absence of discrimination. That is not enough. It must include the creation of, by and through all of us, an authentically inclusive community where we all belong. I'll just share a really brief story. Previous to becoming a school board trustee, I was the coordinator of inclusive education at a community university where I worked with families and students with developmental disabilities. And there was a young man I worked with named Mark who would often tell me, would often say, Nathan, I always feel like I'm on the outside. And it was a profound message because what he was saying made me realize that opportunities that I or many of us take for granted, things like the opportunity to pursue our dreams and aspirations of getting jobs and starting and ending relationships, were not entirely accessible to Mark. And as hard as he tried, it was difficult for him to feel that he was part of a community and that he had a sense of belonging. And so to me, the real disability, his real disability, wasn't so much his Down syndrome, but the loneliness he feels. And that's why as a trustee, spaces like gay straight alliances in our schools are so important, because we must ensure that every person, every child in particular, has a safe and inclusive space where they belong. And only when we create authentic communities of belonging will roots of bullying and fear or hatred be eradicated. Because I can tell you, and Mayor Mandel said this very well earlier, even people who do the bullying yearn for love and understanding and a sense of community. And so this is work that our government institutions and even our laws cannot solve alone. All of us, each of us here, have a responsibility to create a more compassionate and more just society, one rooted in belonging and kindness. And I think this is a fantastic reminder and a great start. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Nathan. Our next speaker is Vigil, Edmonton Public School Board Trustee for Ward G.
Good evening, and I do want to start off by offering huge thanks to NMaSo5 and all of the volunteers who put this event together now 5 years to raise awareness of bullying and the role we all play in making change and speaking up. So I want to start off and say in my daily life I'm a big policy nerd. Not only am I a PhD student in education policy at the University of Alberta, but I also, as a trustee at Edmonton Public School Board, chair our policy committee. And so what that means is a lot of the time, my work is pretty far removed from the school hallways where students face bullying in their day-to-day lives. However, I want to say that despite that, what we do as trustees matters immensely to the lives of kids, each and every day. Through the policy that we set, the targeted funding, the special initiatives, the leadership, and perhaps most importantly, the support and encouragement that we can give to amazing and courageous youth. One of the things that makes me most proud is the way students themselves take the lead on making their schools safe and caring. Whether it's building buddy benches, creating activities for Pink Shirt Day, or supporting each other in GSAs, students are the best leaders on stopping bullying in their own schools. At the same time, though, those students need us to have their back. Lately, we've seen attacks launched on one of the ways that students work together to end bullying through gay-straight alliances, which are also known as queer-straight alliances, which brings sexual and gender minority kids together with their straight peers as allies to speak out against homophobic and transphobic bullying and to create safe and inclusive, welcoming spaces in schools. But I want to say that those clubs don't only help LGBTQ youth. One of the groups we've seen benefit the most from GSAs is boys, especially straight boys, who are often victims of homophobic bullying regardless of their sexual orientation, because our perceptions of gender and boys and what is acceptable and unacceptable affect all boys in schools. And we are now seeing that through the work of GSAs, support for inclusion and diversity in schools, all kids feel safer and more welcome. So you think then that us as adults, we see the benefit of making our schools safer for kids. But instead we see adults right now who think it's okay to cut kids off from access to life-saving groups, to make them afraid, to make them scared of being outed. I don't think that's okay. I don't think it's first of all okay for adults to bully each other, which we've seen entirely too much of lately in our public discourse. And I especially don't think it's okay for adults to bully kids. And so I want to say to students, I want to say to all of our kids, I'll stand up for you. I'll protect your privacy. I'll make sure you have a safe space to be who you are. I hope that through the support of your school community, you will feel ready to share who you are with your family and friends. But unless you're ready to do that, you deserve that safe and protected place where your peers can care for you. Students have shown incredible leadership and courage on this issue. It was our youth who led the charge on Bill 10, ensuring that every young person would have access to a GSA and a safe and caring space in their school. Political leaders heard them and had their backs. They ensured that their rights would be protected. And that's carried through two different governments now, but that's been made a priority. And now it's time for us as courageous adults to stand up and show kids that we are worthy of their trust. Let's not stand by. Let's not be bystanders for our kids. They need us to stop being bystanders and stand up for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Our next speaker is Sandy Pong, a longtime Edmontonian who worked with many community institutions, and she is also a candidate for City Council for Ward 9.
Thank you. I just came from a Heritage Day festival, and now you talk about celebration of inclusion and diversity. Thank you, Ma'am Khan, for bringing the anti-bullying movement to the forefront. My name is Sandy Pond. Growing up in Edmonton, growing up in an immigrant family with parents who cannot speak English, while living in poverty, I have seen all sorts of discrimination and bullying. As a child, I often wish if someone would just step up and step in, that I won't have to experience the embarrassment and the hurt. It doesn't matter what your age, color, race, or gender orientation. We all need someone to protect, to step up and step in to protect one another. Many years ago, I drove by my children's junior high school, and I saw a swarm of kids tied up another child on a lamppost, right at the doorstep of their school. As a mother, my instinct kicked in. I swung my car so fast, right up to the school, and stopped and yelled at the children and said, "Shame, shame on all of you. You all better get on home and let this kid free." As I turned to the kid who was being bullied, I asked him, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Thank you." He knew I was not a bystander. Now my attention turns to the bully, and he told me, "I don't care," and he hurled profanity as he ran off. As a mother, I knew this poor child, the bully, will be a lost soul. Sometimes the person that you need to step in, step up, is you. We all must step up and step in to help one another, to stop discrimination and bullying. Then there will be no lost souls, no lost lives. Our world will be a better place. Edmonton will be a better place. Thank you.
Our next speaker. She is a provincial civil servant and union member, and Karen is running for a seat on City Council in Ward 11.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Tang, and 5 years ago I moved to Edmonton to study health promotion. In other words, how do you build healthy communities? And one of the things I really appreciated about my new environment was that there were a lot of different ways and structure in place to connect individuals to their communities. Our community system is a great example that is unique to our city. So today I'm here at the rally because, Mayor, your experience and story really resonated with me. You know, as I think about this world that we're living in, we're becoming probably more connected and more easily connected than ever before. Yet somehow we're becoming increasingly isolated, physically. But it doesn't have to be this way. And so when I think about what does it mean to be a bystander, and I think about that story that day, you know, I think for most of us, if there were a family or a friend in need on the street, we're going to rush to help them. So why should we treat strangers any differently? And how we interact with strangers, with those who don't know, I think is a sign for how we as a society build the kind of social support necessary for our health, for a resilient city, for having pride in our community where we don't tolerate crime, violence, inequity, or even apathy. And so now, as a more established member of the community, I'm working with a wide range of people to get them connected, to create bridges. And it's one of the key reasons why I decided to run for City Council. Because I have a vision for building a city where we are neighborly to each other, where people care about each other. It's as simple as that. And it doesn't have to be heroic. It could be as simple as a hello or a smile on the street. So the next time you take a walk in your neighborhood, try to say hi to everybody. Not just because they have a cute dog or a baby. Because I think how we start small is how we're going to be building something bigger. That in the long run is going to be a much more preventative measure for how we build a culture for preventing bullying. Thank you very much.
you, Karen Tang. Sim Sanol is our next speaker. Sim Sanol moved to Edmonton a little over 6 years ago. She is a community organizer. She is a board member of the Turkish Canadian Society, the president of the Curriculum Parents Association. She is running for Edmonton City Council in the upcoming municipal for Ward 10.
That was quite a storm this afternoon, so thank you for not being scared of the little hailstorm and coming here tonight. Thank you, Manwar, for inviting me to speak tonight. I am very honored to share the stage with a lot of distinguished speakers. My name is Sim Sanol, as Misha said, and I'm running for Edmonton City Council. I actually just became a Canadian citizen a little over a year ago. I'll be voting for the first time in the Canadian election. I'm actually running in it. What I want to share with you today is my personal experience of what happened to me about 8 years ago in my home country. It's not necessarily about bullying, but it will speak to you a little bit about what John Pollard, about 5 years ago, experienced, the event that Manwar faced at the LRT. About 8 years ago, I was actually riding in my car in my hometown in Turkey, in Bursa, and a car in front of me stopped in traffic, and I slowed down and stopped. And someone walked in front of that car and looked very disoriented, and came by and hit the front hood of my car, and smacked my side mirror, opened the door, and started punching me. It was a complete random attack. It wasn't a case of bullying in my case. It was a complete random attack, but I felt very much like probably what John Pollard felt in that LRT train that day. I was lucky in my case because the people that were in that van that stopped in front of me were not bystanders. Instead of standing by, they chose to stand up. They actually came by and pulled the guy down, and I was lucky that there was a police car coming by, and they controlled the situation very quickly. So, for that reason, I think it's our responsibility, not just for bullying cases, but when we see situations that we can intervene and we can stop, we need to act quickly, we need to be prepared. Now, not all situations end in a good way like the case that I have experienced, so we have to be prepared as bystanders. The literature about bystander psychology basically tells you that if you are prepared, if you know what to do in a situation, you're going to be in the best position to actually handle things well. So there are 4 Ds. I don't know if you know about these, but as a bystander, first of all, you need to take care of your own safety in the situation. But there are 4 Ds. It's about being direct. It's about diffusing situation. It's about delegating, helping, asking for help. And if nothing else, it's about delayed response, going to the person and telling them that things will be okay. I was lucky, as I said, and I'm forever grateful for those men who came into me, because not only did they help me in that specific situation, they helped me probably deal with or avoid a lifetime of trauma. If they hadn't come, if that punching, lasted longer than it did, I probably would have had nightmares all my life thinking about what if he had a knife, what if he had a trip, and there wasn't anybody to protect me. So again, I appreciate living in a city where I feel safe. I appreciate living in a city where there are people like Manwar who try to intervene that day and try to stop the incident. And most importantly, I appreciate living in a city where we learn from that experience, which was a random attack, but we learn it, we turn it into something that's a lot bigger. We turn it into something that we can stop through this initiative of bullying, anti-bullying, and anti-violence. So thank you very much for everyone for coming today, and hope we live in a city that's void of any violence and any bullying. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ahmed Nomadi. Ahmed Nomadi Ali is an award-winning Somali-born spoken word poet, entertainer, and educator. Ahmed is running for school board trustee in Ward 8. Ahmed.
First and foremost, I'd like to recognize we are on the Treaty 6 territory, and I'm grateful to be here. Some friends and family. I just want to start off really quickly before I get into a poem, because I believe I speak through art. Art is very important to me, especially for mental health as a person who was bullied and actually contributed to bullying myself, because we can't pretend that we don't play both parts at times. It taught me a lot that we don't control the world, we control how we interact with it. So it's important to remember that and just be good human beings. And because my mother would always say, don't raise fists, raise points. So I write poetry for that, so here's a poem. They asked me where I came from, so I told them my mother's womb. The conception of my greatness for some is too much, but the birth of my artistry is a must. That's why there was never a plan B. But if you're dying to know, I was born in a land where the bullets fly free like the doves do. But regardless of how many lectures you get, your mama still loves you. A place where there are more stray bullets than cats, more goofies than hats. And if you don't have that lettuce, cheese, or bread, regardless if you got that beef, it's considered a rap. See, I've been chasing talent with success for many years, and I've been abusing it too. So if you were to call me a famaholic, man, it'd be absolutely true. Because most days I wake up wishing I had me millions. Others, I'm grateful I'm up at all. But don't get it twisted, I still wish I had the Starbucks, so I could live on grande and never be short on money, and I'd always back the top. Because money is dear to me. I've been chasing dough ever since I was a young buck. My philosophy's much more simple. Plant flowers wherever you go to grow. Remember that the future is in the youth. Power is in the hands of the people. Live to die old, but always fight to be equal. And if your lover asks for space, return what the universe is this. A bouquet of galaxies and Orion stars to light their scenes at night. And if they act up, cut them from the script. Because life is nothing but a sitcom. Some of them for a few seasons, a few of them for some episodes, and most are just extras in the background. And stay clear of those who hijack style, because there is a stupid like 9/11, or the ones who stand at the corner of the block 24/7 like 7-Eleven. See, I used to have friends that behaved like pennies, and I was having none of it. They didn't change, so I got rid of them like the Canadian government. But I pray that I never forget that it's the light that creates the shadows, and that even stars need darkness to shine, and that we are nothing more than matter made of earth and time, and in a matter of time, this body of ours will go back to earth and will matter. Because in a world where legacy is the only thing you can leave behind, it's not when you enter your grave, but when the last memory of you fades that you die. After all, there's a reason why God shaped this earth like a honeycomb, is so that we will never forget to just be. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Sheila Dunn, is a psychologist in Edmonton who has researched standards to bullying and promoted anti-bullying initiatives. She is running for Edmonton Public School trustee in Ward C.
Thanks so much for including me in this important event. These rallies are really inspiring. This event is important to me because I've been a large part of my life doing research on bullying at the University of Alberta. As part of this work, I got the honor of interviewing junior high students about their experiences with bullying. When I hear people talk about bullying, especially in junior high, I sometimes hear the phrase, kids can be so cruel, and it always makes me think, so they're just like adults then. It's unfortunate but true that bullying doesn't go away after children grow up, and we know that bullying in schools often mirrors the violence and harassment that happens in adult life. Junior high students who are in a minority group by race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, or some other marker of difference are bullied at higher rates, just as those groups are the target of violence and harassment at a higher rate in the adult world. And just like in the adult world, violence in the form of bullying does not happen in isolation. Estimates are that 80 to 90% of bullying is witnessed by other students, and the actions of these witnesses are crucial because when a witness takes action, they can often successfully stop bullying the majority of the time. That's what the research says. If students do nothing, they not only allow the bullying to continue, they send a signal to everyone present that this type of violence is okay. For my research, I was particularly interested in the students who were not bystanders to bullying. These are the students who intervened when they saw someone else being hurt, threatened, intimidated, or left out. We call these students upstanders, people who stand up to bullying. It was an honor for me to be able to interview junior high students who stood up to bullying. As I interviewed them, it became clear that these students
were incredibly empathetic, tested on moral compasses, and they were very aware of how their actions may carry physical or social risks, and they acted anyway. From these students, I learned that there's more than one way to be an upstander. Some students did intervene directly in bullying, even stopping physical violence by directly confronting the bullied student. And other times, when it wasn't safe to do this, they brought in friends or teachers to help stop the bullying. Others befriended the student who was being targeted so that they would have somewhere to sit with at lunch or walk in the hallways. And one student talked with me about how she befriended the bully who was tormenting another student every day in class so that she could explain to him why his behavior was wrong and hurtful. And the amazing thing was that he really did listen to her and stopped his behavior. This is the power of